If we want to get anywhere with God, we need to go the second mile. Got to go the second mile. God does not respond to a lukewarm effort or to half-hearted, half-baked efforts. His commandment is love God with all your heart and soul. Love God with all your heart, with your wholehearted love. We must serve wholeheartedly at every stage of our journey. We must strive for that. Go the second mile. Let's just take a look at a couple of passages in the Bible to pick up on the mood and the tone. Let's take 2 Corinthians 11:25. Paul talking about his ministry. Did he go the second mile? 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers and danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger of false believers. I have labored and toiled and have gone often without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst, and I have often gone without food. I have been cold and hungry and naked. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressures of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak? And I do not feel weak. Who is led to sin? And I do not inwardly burn. Paul went through a lot. He went through his ministry. He once said, he who endures to the end, the same shall be saved. By that standard, going the second mile is just the beginning of the journey. We're going to have to go miles and miles and miles. And it's going to be hard fought every step of the way. Crawling on bloody hands and knees. We're going to crawl for that finish line. Jesus wants wholehearted efforts. Our strength, his strength is made perfect in our weakness. It doesn't matter how weak we are. We need his strength will come to us in our weakness. Paul said he will brag about his weakness. And why would he do that? Well, if his strength is perfected in our weakness, then we can go that second mile at any time in our life. We can go that second mile in prayer. We can go that second mile doing whatever it is that we're doing. We can go that second mile, or that third mile, and that fourth mile. He who endures to the end, the same shall be saved. We must not tolerate half-hearted efforts. We must give our best. We must give our best. However humble that effort may be, it must be our best. Let's take a look at Hebrews 11. Hebrews chapter 11 introduces us to a lot of heroes of the faith. Let's take a look at what Hebrews 11 says, and whether or not these people went the second mile. Hebrews 11:6 says, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. They don't quit after the first mile. They diligently seek him. They go that second mile in their faith, and they seek and they find because they went that second mile. And like the neighbor who, the widow and the unjust neighbor at midnight, and she knocks on that door. She doesn't knock once and then quit. She knocks again. She goes that second mile. Back to Hebrews 11. By faith, Noah, being warned of things not seen, as yet moved with fear, prepared an ark, saving his house, by which he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness, which is by faith. He built the ark. That's a second mile effort. In the faith that's beyond second mile, you're talking about amazing faith. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out to a place he should receive the inheritance, obeyed and went out knowing whither he went. These people went the second mile in their faith. Let's take a look. By faith, by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave the commandment of his bones. But Joseph knew something about going the second mile when they threw him in the pit, and his brothers threw him in the pit and they left him there to die. But then the slave traders came by and they sold him into slavery in Egypt, his own brothers. Now that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. You've gone a mile and you've ended in misery and total dejection and failure. Your brothers tried to kill you and then they sold you into slavery. You're beaten, you're whipped, you're humiliated, you're destroyed by your own brothers. But that's only the first mile. So he goes to Egypt, and with a stroke of luck, perhaps, he became a servant of the king. But the wife was attracted to him and tried to seduce him. But he was a righteous young man, and he rejected her and said, "This is wrong. It's terrible. We can't do this." And she was infuriated by this, and she conjured up some lies about saying Joseph tried to seduce her, and so they threw him in prison. So first his brothers threw him in prison, or threw him in the pit, and he went the full mile in misery. And then he was taken out of it, and now he's back in prison in Egypt on false charges. This guy is going through another mile of misery. Another mile of misery. He's in prison to rot and die. A mile and a second mile of misery. But you go the second mile. Joseph went the second mile, and he never quit. He used what he had. He was able to interpret dreams. And so when other servants of the king were thrown in prison and they had dreams, Joseph used what he had. And he blessed those servants by interpreting their dreams. And eventually, after they were released, Joseph thought he would be released also, because he said, "Don't forget what I did for you. Tell the king to have mercy on me." But they forgot. They forgot about him and left him in prison to rot, even though he saved them and got them out because of his interpretations. So now Joseph is going through a third mile of misery. A third mile of misery in a rotting prison in agony, abandoned by all good fortune, if we are to believe outer appearances. Abandoned by God, could that be right? Could God let him rot in prison? Not only was he thrown in the pit, now he's rotting in prison, and then he was forgotten to go a third mile of misery. But eventually they remembered. They remembered finally. Finally, they remembered. And the king had a dream that needed to be interpreted, and that was the key. That reminded the servant. And so Joseph was brought, and he interpreted properly. He interpreted right. And he was promoted from being a God, not God forsaken, because God was blessing him through unexpected ways. But he was a poor prisoner, and then he was blessed and rose up to be king of Egypt, to be the prime minister of Egypt. And it was through 3 miles of suffering, because he went the third mile of suffering, and he never stopped blessing others along the way. Go the second mile. Go the third mile if need be. Thanks for listening. We'll see you at the next report.